Hi guys, welcome back to Quality Shot Boxing. I'm Ali, and in today's video, we'll be previewing the Dillian Whyte versus Jermaine Franklin upcoming heavyweight superstar clash at Wembley Stadium. But before I get into the crux in the video, please don't forget to like and comment, subscribe down below, guys. But without further ado, let's go in. So, I'm sure, as everyone is aware, Dillian Whyte is fighting Jermaine Franklin. I think this is going to be it will be a very good fight to watch, very interesting fight. I say this all the time, but I think the fact that Dillian Whyte is in a situation whereby, he's no spring chicken, so he needs to kind of prove himself, in order to have any realistic chance, realistic prospect of winning the heavyweight title, or fighting for it at the very least. Once again, he needs to overcome the young, dangerous challenger in Jermaine Franklin. I mean, Jermaine Franklin has had 21 fights, 21 wins. He's undefeated. He's had 14 knockouts. That's about 66% ratio of straight knockouts. And, he's much younger than Dillian Whyte. He's only 29. He's a year older than me. So Dillian Whyte needs to take into account that he cannot afford another slip up. Yes, he's suffered losses to Povetkin, to Fury, to Joshua, and they are by no means embarrassing losses or embarrassing fighters. He's fought at the elite level, in the current heavyweight arena. So he needs to be able to overcome this danger, this challenge. And I think, in all honesty, I think that Dillian Whyte could beat him. I would favor Dillian Whyte just because of his experience. Having said that, as we're all accustomed to seeing in boxing, anything can happen at a moment's notice, especially in the heavyweight division. The outcome of a fight can change just like that. But in terms of styles of each fighter, I mean, Jermaine Franklin, I mean, there's no two ways about it. He's a very big lad. And I was watching some of his highlights before, and he's got a very, very, very powerful punch. And I think Dillian Whyte has been knocked out by punches that, in my opinion, the way I see it, haven't been as hard as some of the punches I've seen Jermaine Franklin throw. And so I would say Jermaine Franklin has one-shot power to easily knock out Dillian Whyte. Furthermore, and to add to that, I do believe that even if he's unable to even if Jermaine Franklin is unable to knock out Dillian Whyte with one shot, he can throw the combinations, and he throws powerful combinations. He doesn't throw any touchy, couple of feeler jabs or punches, then goes for the killer blow. No, I find when he throws his combinations, he throws each one with such power and venom, and that could potentially cause Dillian Whyte some serious problems. Having said that, Dillian Whyte's very powerful guy, a solid guy. They call him the body snatcher for a reason. But I beg your pardon, I do feel that his chin is somewhat suspect. When he's connected with a clean punch, it's somewhat suspect. We've seen it with the Povetkin fight. We've seen it with the Joshua fight, even with the Fury, but predominantly in terms of just the devastating knockout shots. We've seen it, he's susceptible to the uppercut, in my opinion. Whether you guys agree with it or not, and if Dillian Whyte ends up watching this, I'm sure he'll disagree with this, but I do think he's susceptible to the uppercut. And if Jermaine Franklin is able to take advantage of that, Dillian Whyte could be in for a long night. Having said that, I feel that Dillian Whyte's style is similar to that of Jermaine Franklin's, that he's got power shots in either hand, and not just that, he throws combinations, and he's more renowned for throwing combinations than, say, other fighters like Joshua. Joshua, in my opinion, throws, fighting the caliber of fighters that Dillian Whyte. I think Dillian Whyte is more likely to throw more meaningful combinations. Joshua, when he struggles against fighters, he throws, he pot shots. On rare occasions will he throw a couple of combinations. But I do think in that respect, Dillian experience in throwing his combinations, and again, that's something that could trouble Jermaine Franklin. In the same highlights I was referring to regarding Jermaine Franklin, there'll be times where his opponents threw combinations at him, and he struggled. He looked troubled with it. So I think this fight could most likely end in a knockout. Most likely will end in a knockout. And I think that I will favor Dillian Whyte. But at the same time, if Jermaine Franklin ends up knocking him out, it would be an upset. But I personally, I wouldn't be shocked. And it's not just because I'm favoring Dillian Whyte, but it's more so because I've seen a Jermaine Franklin fight. I've seen his highlights. I've seen his reels. I know I've seen his style, and I do think that the style that Jermaine Franklin has is exactly the same as Dillian Whyte. So if I'm expecting Dillian Whyte to potentially win by knockout, I could also expect, it would be fair and reasonable of me to assume that Jermaine Franklin could also potentially win by knockout based on his style. Unlike certain fighters like Alexander Usyk, he's not really a knockout puncher. He's more of a combination, more of a technical fighter. So if for me to predict, let's say in one of Usyk's fights that he's going to win by knockout, it will be a bit of a weird one. Depends on in very rare circumstances could I say that. Whereas with these particular fighters, with Dillian Whyte and Jermaine Franklin, I don't think so. I do think that this is most likely going to end in a knockout. Having said that, and as we've seen recently in some of the previous watch-alongs and previous fights we've seen, just because you have two knockout fighters does not necessarily mean it's going to end in a knockout. I mean, across any of the divisions, heavyweights, middleweight, lightweights, across every and all boxing divisions, we've seen that sometimes the knockout fighters or the so-called fighters who are favored to win by knockout don't actually win by knockout. It could win on points. And just to further add to that, I think both fighters will be wary, and I wouldn't say scared, but they would be mindful of the other fighters' knockout power, and maybe they may be a bit hesitant. They don't want to get too much into it, and as a result, they may just try fight technically. Maybe try injure the person. Not injure, but well, of course they want to injure the person. Retract my comment, but I would say that they would be more wary of each other's power, and as a result, they may use their brain, their boxing IQ more so than their natural brute strength, because they are both very big, bulky, powerful hitters. So, I mean, in terms of the stats as well, obviously, as we've established that Jermaine Franklin has a 100% win ratio, Dillian Whyte has just over 90%, or let's say 90% a win ratio. So I would say similar, considering Dillian Whyte's had about 21 to 30, and he's about another 10 more fights. I think that they have a fairly similar, somewhat similar pedigree or caliber of their records. I mean, Dillian Whyte's knockout ratio is roughly, if not just a tad bit higher than Jermaine Franklin's. His knockout ratio is about 67-68% compared to Jermaine Franklin's 66%. So again, just further adds to my argument that both fighters are very much, they have similar styles and similar, you could say, knockout records. So they're exact. I would say in terms of style, they are exact copies of each other. But I mean, Dillian Whyte has had, like I said, three knockout losses. Is this something that could potentially, if he loses to Jermaine Franklin, where does he go from there? I mean, I understand that whoever wins this fight could potentially challenge Anthony Joshua. And I think if Dillian Whyte wins this, most likely if he wins this, he will challenge Anthony Joshua for a rematch in 2023. And that's going to add through a further spanner into the heavyweight mix. I mean, we've seen the whole Anthony Joshua Usyk saga. We've seen the whole Tyson Fury Usyk and Joshua saga. Is it going to be? Is it not going to be? It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. And I think if they were to fight again, I mean, when they first fought back in 2015, I favored Joshua, because I'll be honest, I like Joshua more so, but I think even in terms of styles, I thought that Joshua would win. Having said that, after we've seen Joshua recently and how suspect his chin can be in certain situations, I think I would probably favor Dillian Whyte. I mean, Dillian Whyte has suffered the losses, and he hasn't had the breakdown that people are calling it, that Anthony Joshua had against his second fight with Usyk. So I think in a mental state, if they were to fight each other, Whyte would be hungrier, in my opinion, slightly hungrier, just because he wants to prove a point. He said, "Yeah, your first win was a fluke, and I rightfully deserve to fight Tyson Fury or Usyk for the belts." And if Dillian Whyte was to beat Joshua and fight Usyk, I think it'll be a different outcome to the Joshua Usyk fight, because I mean, we've seen in the last fight with Joshua, Usyk was troubled by the body shots. Dillian Whyte throws a lot more body shots and a lot more powerful body shots. They call him the body snatcher for a reason. He throws his trademark left hook to the body. It's finished. Like, it will be very tough for Usyk. Like, I don't think Usyk will be able to put up with that as much. And I think Dillian Whyte has a greater boxing IQ than Joshua. So if Dillian Whyte was to first of all beat Jermaine Franklin, then fight Joshua, and then potentially beat Joshua, I think the outcome will be more different. I think it'll be a much closer fight. And I think maybe Dillian Whyte could win that. Maybe he couldn't. I think maybe Usyk would be too intelligent for him. But I think Dillian Whyte will have enough to trouble Usyk in terms of power. And he will do what Joshua should have done and really, really, really take advantage of his physical superiority. I mean, Dillian Whyte's camera, he recently teamed up with Buddy Mogo, one of the greatest boxing coaches of our era, of our lifetimes. I mean, he's coached fighters, you know, his all-time greats such as Arturo Gatti, Antonio Tarver, Hasim Rahman, Paulie Malignaggi, Sergey Kovalev, former world champions and people inducted, if not or soon to be inducted, into the Boxing Hall of Fame. But it'll be interesting to see what this spells for the future of Dillian Whyte's career. I mean, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think, who you think is going to win, what you think would be the next steps, the next stages in Dillian Whyte's career will be. But thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Hopefully see you guys in the next video. Please, please, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe down below. And don't forget to subscribe to our Instagram channel as well, QualityShot Boxing, where we will be carrying on and doing some more boxing interviews and more posts as well. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. See you guys in the next video.